Namaskaram, ma'am.
Namaskar.
On behalf of Plastikalpa, I want to thank you immensely for agreeing to do this for us because we know we've always been fans of your kind of art and what you've created and what you've offered to us. So we're very grateful that you're part of this whole festival, and because it's not like we just curated it thinking we need 5 artists or 4 artists. We wanted specific artists to be part of this particular theme because it was very special for us. So thank you
I'm
so
honored.
much.
I'm honored to be part of this festival.
So I want to ask you the first question. I'm sure you have many offers for many works and all of that, and you've done a lot of interesting work, until now. So what was it about this theme that caught your attention to give it your time and effort and, because I know that you've been spending months thinking about it and you're spending weeks working on it. So what was it about this theme that pushed you to do this?
I think number one is mystery, the theme of us, and the contradictions. Mystery because this goddess, no one could see or no one can hear ever. Yet it's a very physical thing what she's doing. She's dancing. And the contradiction is that this is not a goddess the villagers want to invite home, or it's somebody they fear. There's a lot of negative, thoughts
About her.
but still they unconditionally surrender to her for protection. So that gives a lot of scope for doing unexpected things.
So there are unexpected things that we can expect from this production.
I guess.
Okay. So when I first approached you, I wanted you to actually work on Dhumavati. Yeah? But you chose her, Nishi. So what was it about Nishi that drew you so much?
Firstly, I could not connect with Dhumavati. Personally, I read that all that, and I really did not know. At that point, first it was my music director who mentioned this, and then he had heard it from my research guide Hali Goswami. He took me to the village, and the moment I heard the story, I thought, okay, this is it.
This is something about her caught you.
Something about the story which really caught my attention.
So, what is your understanding of the philosophy of this form of Nishi? Why is she? Why these contradictions? Why this mystery? Why does the goddess even take this form?
Nishi Dhambol actually means nocturnal dance. Dhambol is a kind of a dance with a lot of excitement and drums and all that. Dhamal, that's Dhambol. Now, why she does it? You see, the thing is that it was a need. It's a story made by the villagers many years back, hundreds of years back. There was a need to hide the village goddess. And there was a need to protect the goddess. There was a need to kind of, inculcate fear in the minds of people so that people don't go and search. That's the fact. I mean, okay, but, that brought the mystery, the fear and everything.
So that, yeah, okay, very interesting. So there are these forms of goddess in general that we all like to bring home. We like to worship them every day. We like Meenakshi, like Kamakshi, like so many other forms that Annapurna, Saraswati, Durga, Parvati, we like them. We have a lot of affinity towards them. Then there are these forms that are feared, that people say, no, don't do that upasana because it can turn, it can go the other way. What is it in our philosophy, in our dharma, that creates this kind of different whole section of goddesses that are not very nurturing at first glance? You've worked on many such forms, right? You have worked on other forms too. Chandi, maybe. They say not everyone should do a Chandi Yagam. So what is it about these forms in our philosophy, you think?
You see, these are the contradictions, that we fear. But the goddesses or gods we fear, they are also great taskmasters. They make us go beyond our limits. I think that's very interesting. And what was your question? I forgot.
So that's okay. All these forms that are, slightly considered tantric in nature, slightly considered dangerous. For instance, even when I wanted to work on this festival, there were some people who said, don't do this, because these are goddesses that you should not be touching with a barge pole. There are very specific kind of upasanas that you need to do to even explore these forms. So,
well, I can't get into that, but let me tell you about Nishidhambal. There are two things happening parallelly. Nishidhambal is a ritual, the secrecy, the fear, and everything. And now that everybody knows the actual cause, there is a new temple, and there is a Devi, image of the Devi. So that Devi gets daily, puja. And she's all very visible. But these two are running parallelly. Yet you ask them about the Devi of the Nishidhambal, we don't know how she looks. We don't know. So these are the interesting, how people imagine things. How people, we are so romantic.
Yeah.
Everything comes, the romanticism, the spiritualism, the artistry, everything kind of come together, I think.
In our kind of,
especially in these kind of, rituals.
So this goddess that no one has ever seen, how did you conceive of the storyline, the concept? Because we are not just talking words, right? It's action that needs to come into play when we dance a certain form. So how did you conceive of it visually?
Actually, to be very honest, as I told you that I'll work on this, it was very attractive for me. But when it came to finally actually putting them, in a kind of a logical manner as a performance script, I was completely lost. I mean, there was nothing I could really put down in terms of music, concrete in terms of music, movements, or the theme, how it will progress. And for months, there was nothing. And I couldn't give up also. I mean, the thing is, living in Bengal, being a part of Odissi dance, we are used to, the Devi worship in a very, it's a very strong, we have it in our this thing. But I could have chosen many. But then this story wouldn't leave me. So finally, what happened, it was really magical for me because finally it was it's in October sometimes that it all came in a flow. In 2 days, I could see it and I could write the performance script, everything more or less.
I remember your call. You said until half an hour ago I was scared, now I'm excited.
Yes, I thought that, okay, I should now give up because nothing is coming. But
my God.
my story is not the description of the ritual, the ritualistic dance as the villagers have described to me, uh, uh, or it's the reason behind it, as I was telling you. My story is also actually is about my interpretation of that.
Of that.
Of that.
Your understanding of what it
My
is.
understanding and what kind of thoughts evoked, not exactly my understanding, okay, understanding is there, but what the kind of feelings it evoked.
It creates
The
within you.
throughout there's a lot of this something mystifying, something which you cannot really touch,
Intangible.
something like that, but I had to give it a concrete shape for
For
not
dance.
for to dance, for me to understand, for others to understand, the audience.
Yeah. So it's more driven by the sense that you got from that form that drove you to
Kind
this,
of
the sense of texture,
yes,
the
yes,
yeah,
yes.
yeah,
How the villagers worded, how everything.
yeah. You said that their dialect is also very different, no? The way they speak and
The speak is I've used some of the it happens in a village in Bengal, so I have used some rustic Bengali dialect, but as a soundscape, to
yeah.
produce that mood.
So I was going to come to that question next. Your music is so unique in all your productions. I mean, you really, really work on it, I feel, because when I hear it itself, there's a lot of, emotion that it generates within me, generally. So for this production, what was the soundscape and how did you go about, did you use any verses? Did you use any mnemonics? How did you go about creating the soundscape for this?
For this production especially, I would say that my music was also that it came out in terms of sounds and not always musical, and movements, and the specific way I use those words. And fortunately, my music director, Srijan Chatterjee, he could translate
What
those
you
sounds,
wanted.
everything into music. There is only one lyric
Wow.
I used, just very short one, but that too mostly for the sounds the words evoked, not the meanings of the words.
Ah, okay. Where did you get that one line from? Where did you find it?
This song, my music director used to sing in a
Oh.
different. I've heard him singing, but I could. I mean, those days I couldn't really relate to it. But it came back to me. Oh, this is the sound I want. So everything
Wow.
came as okay. This is the sound I want. So there's a lot of ritualistic drumming, of course. I guess this part of this production. But there are. There are things I never thought I would be able to make.
Or if you are saying that, then I'm really, really looking forward to the production. And how did you design the production, the props? Because I know that you are known for your props and you're known for using a lot of theatrical elements. So how did you come up with the colors, the textures, the props, your costume?
Um, you see, firstly, I think Aharya is not the property of the theater. We are doing Natya. Here, I have one thing also to say that when we use a background, say sets or anything, because it's suitable or it looks nice, we are not always relating to it. In this production, every prop, for every object which came, I'm actually directly using them, connecting with them, and my movements are also connecting with them. So as the story evolved, the props came. Here also, I am very grateful to my student Niloy Sengupta, that again he could translate them, and whatever props I wanted to use, he started beginning to form a design so that aesthetically it worked, and it worked
works
for me to dance, to move along with those
them.
props, to use them.
So I'm very curious, how do you give instructions to these people, with the technicians and the artists that you work? What are the words that you use? How do you describe your thought process to them?
See, firstly, it's always very one-to-one for me. I cannot work with a team sitting. So I do my homework. I do my homework, and that I need to do alone. No one can be there. And then I have my session one-to-one with my music director always. And I have my session with Niloy Sengupta, my student, as I told you, for sets, props. And a very important thing he does is that directing the camera. I am not directing it. So I have a one-to-one session, all worked out, every details written, every shot, details written. That's again a one-to-one session. Then the camera person and Niloy and we can work together and make a script based on which the shooting can happen.
Coming to that, since the pandemic especially, we have all, the Indian classical dancers have really woken up to this whole genre of the dance film, So how do you find adapting what is essentially a two-dimensional craft, which we do on the stage, to a camera? How do you think when you try to adapt it?
Something, I feel our classical dance, or any dance form, that serious dance, it's really huge. It's got, movements and music and texts and history, everything is so huge. And we are a practitioner of that form. And that form is not a stage form, or it's not confined to any space. It's a form, independent. Okay. Now, for years, we have been used to performing it on stage. So we are used to stagecraft. We call ourselves stage people, stage artists. But it's not that. It's not that. But see, as stage artists, as we see ourselves, because this the way we have been working and making the dance mold accordingly. Now the same dance, when it comes to, we film it, it is fair that we give the same respect what we give to the stage and its space, the same respect we give to the camera and the medium what it needs. Only when then one can think of a dance film. You just can't have a, multi-camera thing and choose the shots which are most attractive and put them together.
So how do you adapt this respect for stage to respect for camera? Because it's different kind of a medium altogether, right? When you're working for a camera, how do you adapt when you're choreographing and when you're performing?
See, when I'm choreographing, usually I do not think of any specific space. Okay, stage, okay, right and left and center and this. The dance happens. Wherever the dance takes me, I go. Now, when it is stage, then okay, this is the setup, so I do it like that. The moment the setup changes, I change, my dance changes. So now in the camera setup, I think, okay, how this will look, that how it will express, because it's not the audience's eye, it's a camera eye. So it's not, I am not technically a trained person. So I am, most of the time I'm confused, but I am very, one thing I'm always sure of, I have to find out. So between Niloy, who also has a knack for, seeing things how, because the movement of the camera, movement of the, body and everything. He's a designer by profession. So what happens is that we finally figure out. So it happens shot only
shot.
one eye, which is looking and telling the story. Yes, it's all one eye only.
Lovely. So generally when we perform on stage, there's a continuity, right? It's a different kind of an experience being on stage, and it's different being in front of the camera because you're cutting all the time, and there's a lot of breaks, and we don't even shoot in an order. So how do you work in your mind about preparing to perform for the camera? How do you prepare yourself to perform for the camera?
First of all, whether it's stage or camera, my writing work, which I need to do alone, that's very long charts, long charts. So which I'm thinking and writing, I spend at least, I think, 60 to 70% of the time working on that, the script. Then it becomes a lot more easier to, okay, then make the move.
Prep yourself. Prep yourself. Get into that mode.
Into that and all that. You see, what is annoying is that the continuity, as you say, because it stays the same dance. The thing is that what happens, we create a dance and we can do it for 20 years, 30 years, forever. And every time we do it, it changes. We change along with the dance. But here it is so final that once the film is out, it's out. So the work is tremendous. The work is huge. The pre-shooting work.
Pre-shooting work is huge. So the preparation helps you really get into it.
Yes.
What about the post? How do you work on the post-production part?
See, they say, we all know that editing actually makes the film.
Yes.
Because it catches the, the exact moment, the exact point, the music, the sound, and the movement balance. All these things. Editing is so important, and it gives you a kind of second chance.
Because
when you're filming, then you can change it to a within limits. You can change it while editing and all that. Again, I feel that homework plays a huge role, because if you sit for editing with a lot of untidy shots, then it could be very difficult.
So sometimes have you noticed this, that if not with this film previously, that you think that a certain movement will translate a certain way onto the camera, but when you finally sit in the post and look at it, it's not really working,
or maybe it's not.
The impact is not great, or
it happens.
It happens. And how do you deal with that situation? Because then you can't go back, right? We can't go back and.
Firstly, one thing I feel that performer should not be directing the film unless we are very experienced. So that I kind of eliminate by having Niloy to do the choreographing is mine, everything is mine, but then he takes over at some point. So I am set free. So somebody is there to watch. That's important in a film. On stage you can do a lot of wild things and all that. It's different. It's sometimes it settles in a different way. Okay, today it's not a good show. Tomorrow maybe not so good, but it kind of evolves. But the finality of the film, it's very scary, I find.
Yeah. Also, there's a chance to redeem yourself on stage. Like if a certain movement has not, there's another piece that we perform or whatever, we go on to something else. But with a dance film, it's just that film. So it is like you said, the finality is very scary. So
it is very scary for me. And we are all learning. Actually, we talk about dance films. How much do we know really? About filming or editing or things like colors, which will
work well.
And this. What are the problems? Technical problems.
Yes. And where should the light be for the camera to catch it a certain way, and where should what be? Everything. So when was your first dance film that you made ever?
That was, I think, August. When did we have lockdown?
2020. Last year.
No, it was 2019.
No, ma'am. 2020 March. Yes. It's just been 1.5 years. 2 years almost.
Yeah. Anyway, the first dance film, seriously, like that, it was in August. It was called Shiv Shakti. Then I did, from the beginning, I knew that I just can't go to stage and have my performance filmed. So from the beginning, my effort was there. But one thing I realized, there was one problem, that, the filmmakers, they are not trained in dance. So there's a
gap. There's a huge gap.
There's a gap. So you need to have somebody to bridge the gap.
Someone who's engaged with dance as a medium and filmmaking as a medium, and who understands both.
Trained in dance.
Yeah. Otherwise it gets difficult, because it's not like just taking a shot of a person talking or emoting. Yeah.
Yeah, it's you need not training in dance, the training in movements, how it should look, colors, the visuals of it. So it's hard to find, somebody like that who can translate what you really want.
So, like now you've choreographed this for the film, for camera. Now, if you have to adapt it onto the stage, how would you change it?
I know at some point that I will do it.
Lovely. I would love to watch it live too.
Yes, I mean, as a dancer, I won't really work on something just for that film. If I invest my energy, it would
so much.
Like it has to continue. Yes. But at this point, I really don't want to think about it, because it confuses me a lot.
You have to go with this thought for now.
I have to completely surrender to this.
To the camera and to showing Nishi like this.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. It's great talking to you, ma'am. We just wanted this small, interview, because I myself am curious about, watching your film.
I think we are all very curious about each other. We are very, very curious. Everybody is. Whomever I'm asking, we want. I mean, there's a lot of curiosity.
Yes. I hope so. I hope everyone is going to watch all the films, because I know that everyone is spending. Yes, great. Everyone is spending so much time and effort into this and making it the best possible. And since July, like since when I first contacted all of you, everyone has been really thinking a lot, and a lot of mental, emotional churning has been happening.
Yes.
So, anything you would like to tell people about, few adjectives that you would throw at people about what to expect from Nishi Dombole?
I would say expect the unexpected. And it will not be grotesque. I do not have the word to describe it.
Great, lovely, lovely.
Mysterious emotions which you cannot really give words.
Put in words.
Put in words. Yes.
Something that will make you sit up and look and watch and feel, but
think,
not
and think. Go
think
back
and think.
Yes.
Lovely, lovely. I really, really hope that people are gonna, as many people as possible are gonna come and watch this, because I know how much you've been working on this, despite so many, odds and obstacles and.
I hope and I'm sure. This time I know for some reason I'm sure we'll have a very good audience.
A good audience. Lovely, lovely. And I want to watch it live also sometime. Let's see when that happens. I want to watch it live too. Thank you so much, ma'am. We will just wait for the film and
okay.
watch it and experience it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Namaste.